Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. As pressure grows to stem the extortion crisis in Surrey, the province has appointed a community advisory group and a chair to build trust. We're going to talk to a Surrey resident and organizer about what the community wants to see. And Olympic competition starts today. We'll talk about youth sports and we'll ask you, how much does it cost you? What are the barriers to having more kids participate in sports and physical activity? Scott Rintoul will be my guest and we'll take your calls. I'm Michelle Elliott. Welcome to BC Today. First, to the ongoing extortion crisis. This morning on local South Asian radio, Premier David Eby announced that former RCMP officer Paul Dadwal will be appointed as the leader of a new community advisory group. The goal is to foster better communication and trust between police and the community. Dadwal was born and raised in Surrey and has 19 years of experience in policing, including with the Surrey RCMP. He also worked on gang investigations and led a South Asian gang task force called Project Territory. He is of South Asian heritage and fluent in English and Punjabi. Dadwal was not ready for an on-air interview today, but did send us a statement. And it says, "I'm proud to take on this important role, but no one takes pride in stepping into leadership because their community is in crisis. I wish these circumstances didn't exist, but given the situation, I am fully committed to this work and to serving the community." And Dadwal says that in the coming days, he will be receiving detailed briefings from police services and government partners on his new role. Joining me for some reaction is Rasinder Kaur. She's an anti-extortion advocate and organized a protest rally in Surrey last weekend. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
First, how do you feel about a community advisory group on extortion?
First of all, I congratulate Mr. Paul on the appointment because that is a more necessary step towards our community. And the second one, because Premier David Eby is already know, like there is a coordination between the policing, so he understands that part. I am hoping the government is taking actions now, so I'm hoping we will solve this crime, extortion crime, maybe together. Maybe coming possible times. I already spoke Mr. Paul today too, and he is asking 1 or 2 days, then we will sit down and talk more about it. And then, but still, peace protest is still going on. We are not going to stop it.
You're going to continue with the protests. And do you know when you'll have the next one?
We are planning, one is, or other group is doing on Sunday on 2 to 4, and we are planning for the next one with the, let's see, Mr. Paul Dadwal saying, and he said he's going to join us too.
He said he will join you there. So can you tell me a bit about this particular step? How far do you think it does go to set up a community advisory group and to have someone with the kind of background that Mr. Dadwal does? How far does that go for you?
I think he's the person who can speak with the policing because he has experience as an ordinary Surrey resident. We don't know much about it. So I think this is the good step. Then we can understand where we have to coordinate each other's.
And the goal is to, increase that communication, build trust. How lacking is that right now?
To be honest, the community doesn't have any trust on policing and the law system right now, because it's been a while. When we start protesting on the roads, then it's like a little bit movement going on all levels of governments. So we are hoping it should address before we have to stand on the road.
So you're saying that you feel that the protests that you've organized over the recent days have helped kind of push the issue forward with the province? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yes.
And why do you think that is? Like, why has it taken, some of your protests and recent news to prompt this action from the province? I mean, this has been going on for really 3 years now.
Yeah, it's from last 3 years, and we didn't see any particular arrest. Once we started the protest, we saw 5 people they arrested, and they already charged them and exposed their IDs, identities, and also now Mr. Paul Dadwal's appointment is giving us another hope, like it's gonna be resolved, the
What,
issue we have suffering right now.
pardon me, Rasinder. So where do you think that gap is currently, prior to Mr. Dadwal's appointment? Where has that gap been between, the Surrey Police Service, the
And
task
RCMP
force,
for
and the
sure.
RCMP task force, and the community?
Yeah.
Can you describe where that gap is in communication?
I think it's not nobody connected, and if a police are doing their job, it's either Surrey Policing, RCMP task force, or other one. But the thing is, like they are not showing us the progress. If we are asking the questions to policing, they are saying like it's a confidential information. If we don't know what's going on behind the scene, then we are thinking like it's a nothing happening.
But from their perspective, they also don't want to make vulnerable their investigation as well, as there may be sensitive information. What do you think of that?
We understand that part, like but now once they arrest 5 people and they charge them, before we didn't see any rapid arrest, anything, because people are keep going around and threatening community, asking money, and so many people already paid them because they don't want to go into the picture. They are just saying like, okay, take it, leave me alone.
They feel that that is the only way to kind of resolve the problem.
Yeah, but it's not the solution, They
Mhm.
will come back to them too. I'm also talking to my community. They have to break their silence. They have to go in front and tell them, help policing also give the information what's going on with them.
How hard is that to do, to convince them to come forward?
You know what? Right now, they are not understanding. They are still in a fear. They are scared. We have to build that trust with them, then they can speak out.
So I know you had a conversation with Paul Dadwal this morning. What is your ask then? What is it that you would like to see from him and from this community group?
We wanted the permanent solution for this crime. It's not like a small crime. Especially in this economy, people, everybody is suffering economically, but on top of the extortion, it's like people, they cannot live their life like a peace of mind. They are not enjoying their life. They are struggling. They are thinking to go back somewhere else. They want to move from Canada. So it's not helpful for the community, I think.
Yeah. What would you like Mr. Dadwal to do? What's an action you would like from him?
He asked a couple days, like he has to figure out some stuff, and we will sit down and then we will talk more. So we want actions only. We don't want anything else. We want action, an arrest, charge, and the punishment. That's it.
Rasinder, thank you very much for taking our call today and joining us on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate speaking with you. That's
Thank
Rasinder
you.
Kaur from Surrey, an anti-extortion advocate, and organized a protest rally in Surrey last week. And as you heard her say, they are planning for more. Now, as pressure grows to find solutions, Premier David Eby also announced a shakeup is coming to the Surrey Police Board. Now, 4 of the current 8 members will be replaced at the end of their terms by new board members who will be selected by the province and the city of Surrey. Surrey Mayor Brenda Locke said in a statement the new board appointments will reflect, quote, the community and their public safety priorities. Harvey Chappell is the current chair of the Surrey Police Board. He told CBC the change interrupts their efforts.
No, the thing that upset me is really bad timing. It's really bad timing given the transition, given the conversation, the extortion crisis that's going on in Surrey. And I kind of have a phrase that you don't change riders in the middle of a stream, right? You don't hop off and kind of move on. We're neck deep right now, and we're our former directors that were on board, they were up to the task to be advocating and doing the work that we had to do at our board to give our police service and Norm Lipinski, our chief, the supports and resources he needs. Unfortunately, some of that loomed, we had to be advocating to the province or the municipality for those supports, and we didn't get those opportunities.
That is Harley Chappell. My apologies. It's Harley Chappell, who's chair of the Surrey Police Board. $12:17 now. You're with BC Today. I'm Michelle Elliott. Thanks so much for being with us. And yes, excitement begins in Italy. Competition starts today at the 2026 Milano Cortina Olympic Winter Games. Now, the opening ceremonies will officially kick things off on Friday. You can tune in at 11 a.m. on CBC. And as the world's best athletes take to the slopes, the ice, or the track, we're going to talk about youth sports, perhaps finding that next generation of athletes. So we're asking you, if you're a parent, how much does it cost you to put your children into sports and physical activity programs? What are the barriers for young people getting into sports, and what's needed to make access easier and more affordable? Love to hear from you on the open line. Our numbers are 604-669-3733, 604-669-3733, or 1-800-825-5950. You can email as well, bctoday@cbc.ca, or leave a comment on our TikTok Live. Joining me in studio is Scott Rintoul. He's a longtime sports journalist and host of the podcast Better Sport Parents. Scott, hello. Thanks for coming in.
You're welcome, and thank you for having me back.
I'm very glad to have you back. We talked last time about how parents can be better sports parents, but this time we're going to talk about how they can be sports parents to begin with. How much does it cost to even get into the game?
Well, it really depends on what sports you're talking about. And certainly in Canada, we know what sits at the top of that order. Yeah. It's not the most expensive sport, but it's the most expensive sport that's widely played. And of course, I'm talking about hockey. And Jumpstart just released a report, which was really eye-opening, quite frankly. It's called The State of Youth Sport 2025. And they surveyed a number of children, up to almost 4,000. And they surveyed parents and caregivers as well, almost 6,000 across the country, just to get a better idea of, okay, what does it cost? What are some of the barriers to access? And hockey came in as more than double the next closest sport in the top 10 that children play. So just to give you an idea, it was around $3,500. So there are
$3,500 a year.
For a family to participate in hockey.
Yeah.
Now, there are some hockey families that pay less. There are some that pay a lot more, but that was on average. Whereas you compare it to other sports in the top 10, like basketball and soccer, less equipment needed. Sure. You don't need an ice rink. They were far more affordable. And so as you see participation rates going up across the country in sports like swimming, basketball, soccer, it's no surprise that affordability is a big part of that access.
Yeah, having been a basketball parent myself, I can certainly say access is not as difficult as it would be with hockey. And what is the second sport behind hockey that is farther back?
Well, it's interesting. It depends on which one we look at overall, but basketball, for example, is actually rising. So is soccer. And because of some of those extra costs, the registration, as you will well know, is not that expensive for basketball. Mm-hmm. But okay, we're going to play in this tournament and we're going to play in another tournament and we're going to travel
Right.
and we're going to add backpacks and now everybody has to have a tracksuit.
Yeah.
It's a number of these extras that are fun to have, but are they really necessary to have? And every club has to ask themselves that. And I know kids and families like to participate in that and have that team environment, but all of those costs add up at the end of the day. And in most cases, there are some exceptions, but in most cases, that's being passed on to the consumer, which is the sports parent.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can attest to how things build up, not just in cost, but in time as well. So can you speak to that as a barrier?
Absolutely. And I think it's a big one right now. You will know this as a sport parent. I certainly know as a sport parent. And I think many of the viewers and listeners will know this as well. As you start to participate longer, well, now we've got more practices.
Yeah.
We've got more tournaments. We've got more games, and they're not always local. So the driving time, this is one of the biggest access problems right now, is that geographically, it's not easy for people to get their children from one place to another. Most families, because of the cost of living, both parents are working if both parents are available in that household. How are we getting our kids to where they need to go? Yeah, carpooling exists, but it's not always as easy as that might seem. So geography, I should say, is one of the bigger access problems as well. And then as we get outside our urban centers, are there even programs available? And in some cases, that is a challenge as well, that you may not have a program in a smaller community that a child wants to access. So how can we, as a nation, start to improve that access, whether it's in our urban centers or in our smaller communities?
And let me ask you before I start going to calls here. So you've pointed to cost, travel, availability. I wonder too about, not everybody is interested in hockey or basketball or soccer. We also did in my family dance, taekwondo, things like that. So what about sports that perhaps are just more suited to different kids? How accessible are they?
Well, I think they, again, depending on what community you're talking about, they are accessible. Dance is a perfect example. In my children's school, there are a lot of primarily females that dance, but there's the occasional male participant as well. But mostly on that side, it's gender specific to females. The dance requirements as you start to get further into elementary school, well, you got to be here 5 days a week. And I'm not saying that's all dance programs, but there are a lot of them. And this is the other access problem we're having as we try to get more exposure for kids in multiple sports. We're becoming too restrictive, in my opinion, with many of these programs. Well, if you're not here this many times a week, I'm sorry, you can't participate. Oh, well, what if I want to play soccer and I want to dance and I want to try volleyball? Sorry,
Right.
you have to make choices. And again, we bring affordability into that. I know that's not accessible for everybody in that standpoint as well, but we're restricting access in so many different ways that it's not leading to enough exposure, in my opinion, for most children.
Oh, that's interesting, that kind of all or nothing. What if just some is going to be so helpful? And we'll talk later, of course, about why this is important to begin with. As Olympic competition begins, we're asking you about youth sports. How much does it cost you to have your kids in sports and physical activity programs? What are the barriers, and how can we make it more accessible? Our numbers are 604-669-3733, 604-669-3733, 1-800-825-5950. You can also just hit pound 690 on your cell phone or send an email to bctoday@cbc.ca. My guest is Scott Rintoul, who's host of the podcast Better Sports Parents. Cody is our first caller in Prince George, and you have kids who play volleyball, Cody.
Yeah, volleyball is the big sport now for the boys. Volleyball is the fastest growing sport for boys, actually, in the world.
And how old are your boys?
They're both 15.
Okay. All right.
They'll be,
Okay.
16 December.
Wow. And tell us about that. What's that like for you then?
So they just finished school volleyball season, and they played on the junior A team, so that's grade 9s and 10s. And for each boy to play before we got on the road was about $1,500 per kid.
Oh, my goodness.
And you get on the road, you've got hotels for parents, you've got food for the kids, you've got new shoes for every single season.
Right. What is the $1,500 for?
Well, it's a tournament entry fees,
Okay.
uniforms, gym space, you name it. If there's a way for someone to charge, they will. They did used to offer hardship fees or hardship funds for people in need, but those have all been canceled at the district level through the school. And then I've also got one of my boys is now playing club volleyball, which is $3,000 before we hit the road.
Oh my goodness. What impact does that have on you, Cody, and your family?
Well, I mean, we're at a spot where I'm working 3 jobs to keep everything going.
3 jobs.
And a day off is starting to feel like a rarity. Really looking forward to Family Day coming up. But it's every minute of every day we are forced to think about how are we going to feed my kid when he's potentially with the team in Calgary if we can't go down. Or how are we going to afford to take the family to Calgary for 4 days for a 4-day or 3-day tournament or whatever, right? And the costs are it's insane. And there's no reprieve. There's fundraising you can do, but you're competing against 15 other club teams.
Right. So, I mean, given those costs, why do you stick with it? Why is it so important for you and your family?
Well, the kids enjoy it. It's good for them to stay connected to other like-minded kids who are focused on improvements of themselves and their peers and are getting away from partying and doing other stupid things that get kids into trouble. Plus, potentially, if we pursue it hard enough, high enough, maybe it's a ticket to school.
Yeah, you've got a lot weighing on your mind, Cody, and my goodness, 3 jobs, essentially thinking about it day in and day out. How are we going to pay for all of this? Thank you so much for calling in. I really appreciate hearing from you. First of all, volleyball, yes, absolutely growing in popularity. But what went through your mind listening to Cody?
That it's fairly typical from what I'm hearing in the youth sport environment as well. And it's happening at younger ages than the children Cody was mentioning there as well. He's absolutely right. When we talk school-based sports, they are less expensive than your club sports in general. And I would like to see us get back toward more school sports, more community sports. And there are things we can do. It sounds very simple on the surface. I do think that is a big part of the solution to both affordability and accessibility for people, because where are our children every single day? Well, they're mandated to be in school. Yes, you have an option to homeschool, but for most Canadians, sending your kids to school is where they're going to be every single day. That's your reality. So can we find better ways to keep these school-based or community-based so that people like Cody aren't saying, well, I got to get out of here at 3 o'clock from my job today so I can transport my child to a club sport that begins at 4 o'clock, and I'm not sure that I can make that work. And how does the transportation work? We might be out before we actually have a chance to be in. I know there are a lot of complexities under that idea of bringing it back towards school and community-based sport, but that to me is the direction we need to move in general. And I understand what he's saying. Hey, my kid loves this. I think that's something we all feel as parents. This is something my child wants to participate in. We know the health benefits, both physically, mentally, long-term health, the less strain on our healthcare system. There's so many benefits we can list right now. I don't think there's anyone out there watching or listening that doesn't think regular physical activity, whatever that is, from walking all the way up to something strenuous, is good for you on a daily basis. But are we going to price families out of this so that their children never enter and we continue to add on to some of the societal problems that we're building through this?
Really interesting. And also to hear him say, yes, when his son is off at a tournament in Calgary, they can't go. And so the cost of that as well, it just keeps on building up. My guest, Scott Rintoul, a longtime sports journalist and host of the podcast Better Sport Parents, will continue to take your calls as we ask you, how much is it costing you to keep your kids in sports or a physical activity program? And how can we make sports more accessible? 604-669-3733, 1-800-825-5950. Tracy in Penticton and Mirella in Victoria, please hang on the line. We'll get to you in a few minutes here. Right now it is 12:30. You're with BC Today, but right now it's time for a CBC News update. And here's Rob Zimmerman.
Good afternoon. A new report shows media restrictions by Vancouver Police and the City of Vancouver at the Hastings Decampment in April of 2023 violated human rights. The report from the BC Office of the Human Rights Commissioner says the restrictions affected freedom of the press and transparency. In a joint statement, the City and VPD challenged the report and say media access was prioritized, adding exclusion zones were due to safety concerns. Former Mountie Paul Dadwal has been named as chair of a new advisory committee meant to work with police on extortions in the Lower Mainland. Dadwal served several years with the Mounties and has experience as the acting chief of the Combined Forces Special Enforcement Unit. And the family of a BC teenager found dead on a beach in Australia last month has taken part in a traditional Aboriginal ceremony mourning her death. The body of 19-year-old Piper James was found January 19th. An autopsy revealed the teen likely drowned but did suffer pre-mortem dingo bites. James' parents say they will bring their daughter's body back to Canada, where a funeral service is scheduled February 28th. And now the forecast. The rainfall warning continues for the north coast. In the Peace, a few showers this afternoon with strong winds and highs around 7. In the central interior, including Prince George, mainly cloudy with a high of 12. Highs up to 9 and mainly cloudy in the Kootenays. In the southern interior, including Kelowna, cloudy with a high of 8. And for Metro Vancouver, Greater Victoria, and the Fraser Valley, a mix of sun and cloud this afternoon with highs around 14. That's your CBC News update from Vancouver.
Thank you so much, Rob. It's Rob Zimmerman in the CBC Vancouver newsroom. This is BC Today here on CBC. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Michelle Elliott. An Olympic competition does begin today in Milano Cortina, and that's ahead of the official opening ceremonies on Friday. There is a slew of Lower Mainland athletes competing at the Games. Vancouver Golden Eyes player Nina Job-Smith grew up on the North Shore, and she's suiting up in Milan, but not for Team Canada, Team Germany instead. She spoke this morning on the Early Edition.
Oh, I'm a dual citizen. My mom's family and my mom's side of the family is from Germany. So in my senior year of high school, I chose to come overseas to play here one season and ended up with that being able to be eligible to play for the German national team. So at 19 years old, I started playing with the senior team and debuted in my first world championship and have been with the team since. Qualifications, it's a stressful time. You're counting on 3 games to decide whether you go to the Olympics. So there's a lot of pressure on teams that do go to those tournaments. And but with the experience we had in recent years, we felt really comfortable going into that environment. And I think we were as prepared as we could have been. We were in a ton of tournaments leading up to the qualifications. And then with the nail biter game at the end against Team Hungary with a goal getting called off there at the end.
Yeah.
It was just a really intense and exciting feeling knowing that we were the ones deserving to go and earn that opportunity.
Now, both Germany and Canada will kick off their Olympic opening games on Thursday. Germany will play Sweden at 3 a.m. and Canada takes on Finland at noon. .34. You're with BC Today. And while many young Canadians are competing at the Winter Olympics, most athletes do start quite young, and not always in the sport they go on to compete in. Now, we're talking about youth sports here and asking you, how much is it costing you to keep your kids in sports and physical activity programs? What are the barriers to getting your children and yourself into sports? And why is physical activity important? How can we make them more accessible? You can call us now, 604-669-3733, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, or 1-800-825-5950. Let me just go to another caller quickly here. Tracy in Penticton, I know you've been waiting a little while. Go ahead. Thanks very much.
Hi, can you hear me?
Sure can, yeah. Well, you want to talk about other barriers other than financial?
Yeah, well, the financial aspect, I mean, there is stuff like Jumpstart, but $300 doesn't go very far when you're putting a child in sports.
Sure.
You know, it's only going to maybe do a couple of months worth of sports, and it doesn't include equipment. Something else that I've run into as a barrier is that if you are unable to be one of the first 15 people to register your child, there's no way of getting your child into anything. I've tried registering one of my children at several different locations for a particular sport this year, both in September and in January, and I can't get them into a class at all because they're all full.
Yeah.
Before,
And what sports are we talking about, Tracy?
That in particular is dance, but I would also say, you know, in a community like Penticton, everything is very hockey heavy, and now everything's very pickleball heavy. So unless you want to go and do something at 5 a.m. or something like that, you know, getting space to run sports is really hard for anyone who wants to do anything other than hockey or something like that. So having the space to do those things doesn't really exist either.
Yeah. Tracy, thank you very much. That's a point that Scott made earlier, availability of those sports programs. And in your case, the programs and space, community space as well. Tracy, thanks very much for the call from Penticton. Yes, Scott Rintoul is with me, longtime Vancouver sports journalist and host of the Better Sports Parents podcast. And Stephen Berg is joining us as well. He's an assistant professor in the Faculty of Education at UBC Okanagan. Stephen, thanks very much for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. I just have to
Yes.
show my Canada jersey. This was my 3 children said to represent Canada.
You're doing it very well. That's very apropos. Thank you. You're getting us into the Team Canada spirit for sure. We were talking about access to sport, and Scott was talking about the need for perhaps schools to become more involved and expand what they have available and to offer for students. What is the current state of sport programs and physical education in schools?
Right. Well, at the high school level, it's pretty good. We know that kindergarten to grade 10, physical education is mandatory for all students, and then grade 11 and 12, it's an option. What we're seeing at the high school level, even the middle school level now, are different programs. So we have a traditional kind of a physical education class, mainly in the gymnasium. We're also seeing things like outdoor education classes where students don't like that traditional team game type of physical education. They could do more outdoor activities. We have classes like dance now that are just dance for physical education or living type classes. So at the middle and high school level, we're doing okay. The elementary school level, where I primarily focus, we don't see a lot of, and I think Scott mentioned this earlier, some of the team or some of the sport activities, we don't see it as frequently as, for example, when I grew up. We still have some volleyball, some basketball, track and field, but there aren't as many opportunities. As a physical educator, I would like to see more. This, and Scott mentioned this as well, and I'm echoing his statement. Children are at school 5 days a week for the most part, a majority of children anyway, and we have that opportunity to promote healthy, active living, not just physical education, but other opportunities within the school day.
What's needed to incorporate more of that into the school day then for those younger kids?
Teacher training, for sure. We know that teachers and policymakers as well, so we're talking to administration, if they receive some more professional development, teacher education programming, for example, here at UBC Okanagan or other faculties of education across the country or around the world, just gaining those knowledge, skills, positive attitudes and attributes around the importance of physical and health education, that will transpire into the school system. We know that for math, we know that for literacy. If we have lots of professional development, lots of opportunities to learn about the importance and strategies around math and literacy, we could do the same thing with physical and health education.
I can see Scott nodding along here, but are you regretting not wearing a Team Canada jersey?
Well, I have red and white on me every single day by virtue of birth, so I think I represent every single day.
Okay.
But yes, I am regretting it a little bit.
No, you look great, but yeah, I mean, come on. You're really representing there. Thank you very much, Steve. All right, let's go to a couple more calls here. Scott Rintoul is with me, of course, host of the Better Sport Parent podcast. Stephen Berg, assistant professor in the Faculty of Education at UBC Okanagan. We're taking your calls. How much is it costing you to put your kids in sports? And what are the barriers to having more young people participate? 604-669-3733. 1-800-825-5950. And Morella in Victoria, thanks for joining us. Your kids are participating in aquatic sports.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you. Yes, and that's one of the culprits of accessibility, right? Because it involves pools and big infrastructure for, local governments and districts to have. So that alone, it's very restrictive. The club costs are... they're quite crazy. By the end of this year, I think it will be around $5,000 on aquatic sports, and that does not include like equipment and the bathing suit, this and that. Right? There's a pile of stuff, and there's fees for competitions. So I'm scared that maybe we're gentrifying sports, and everything I hear, it's just my mind. Yes. All the fears the parents of, kids, and especially teenagers have, I think sports, it's almost like, oh, that's the salvation, right? So I would do anything to keep them going.
Wow.
But I'm in a position of privilege because I'm in a two working parents in a household. So we can right now deal-ish with the logistics and the price, but what does it say for the rest of the community, right? And my kid loves swimming, and it's just that phase of, it's so gratifying to see them evolve, to build, mental health and physical health. So I wish it was more accessible. I wish we could have tax credits for sports and clubs. There are a myriad of fees that we have to pay right at the bat when we register, so it's not quite flexible, right? So that's where I'm at with the aquatics. I'm very happy with opportunities to fundraise, but there's only so much we can do, right? So I have my paid work. I'm a driver. I do coordination of carpools. So it's almost like we all need a personal secretary to get our kids at, 5:30 a.m. at the pool. And I think the hockey parents can relate to that you're at the mercy of facilities and pool time and ice time.
Absolutely.
So there we go.
Morella, thank you very much. As you say, you'll do anything. Suddenly we're all bakers, right? Because we're fundraising. Yeah. Morella, thank you very much. Really good to hear from you. That idea of, what kinds of financial aid needs to be available.
Well, and this is part of the study that really jumped out at me as well. So we had one of the callers already mention Jumpstart, and I was really pleased to hear that because there are great programs out there like Jumpstart, Kids Sport, Athletics for Kids. I'm only naming 3 here, but there are plenty of organizations that can help. A lot of people don't realize it, and they don't realize what is needed to qualify. That study that I referenced from Jumpstart showed that 3 out of every 4 parents surveyed did not know of an organization that could help financially or otherwise help access sport. We need to get the word out on this. And then she brings up another great point as well. You get into club sports, and part of the reason parents put their children in club sports is because the coaching that is available in club sports. Well, that costs something to train those coaches. And to echo something Stephen said a little earlier, if we can help train and provide resources for our teachers who have traditionally been the ones that have offered access that is lower cost and more accessible for our students, then I think they will give back. But our cost of living has gone up so much. There are a lot of teachers that are saying, I would love to do that. Unfortunately, it costs me so much to live right now. I can't just give you 2 to 3 hours more of my time. And I might not be prepared to coach anyway. Can we offer better resources? Can we offer the tax credits that were just brought up? That's a way our government can give back to the sporting community.
That's what is certainly what Morella was talking about. Let's head to Fort St. James, and Kim is calling us. You have twins who play rep hockey, Kim?
Yes, we have a couple of boys that have been in hockey for the last 4 years. We moved up from the lower mainland, so we, with our older boys who played football in high school, which was absolutely wonderful. I think the only thing that we bought for those boys were cleats. Everything else was paid for. We come up here into a small community. There's some sports through the school that's affordable, of course, but it's only for 2 months at a time. So they're in rep hockey on the side, and we've had to move them to rep hockey because we don't have enough players in their level. So it's now costing us between $8,000, $9,000 somewhere a year just for rep hockey. So, we would, it's, and we have no choice. Otherwise they don't play. We would really like to see the schools offer longer. They do play basketball, but it's only for 2 months and then it's done. So
That's a good point, Kim, because there's a shorter season. Yeah, what do you make of that, Stephen?
Well, I mean, this is where policies can come into play, where school districts can work together to see how can we extend these. Maybe, yes, there's a 2 or 3 month traditional basketball season, so to speak, but maybe we can continue on for those children and youth who want to keep playing basketball. Maybe it's on a recreational level where we can have some exhibition games, etc. But to continue that on, I'll jump on what Scott said a little earlier. Teachers are taxed, and to ask them to just keep doing more is a lot. And so again, we look at policies whether at the school level, at the district level, at the provincial level, etc., where we can really sit down with multiple stakeholders and look at how can we start making all of these things more accessible, not only for the children and youth who want to play, but for the educators at the school level who want to coach but just don't have the time or the financial. They might have to go to another job. Just one more thing, again, what Scott mentioned is a lot of the parents don't realize that there are programs like Jumpstart, etc. That's where the schools can come into play as well, where we have that communication piece between community organizations and schools or school boards where, hey, we have these programs, here's the information.
And that's not happening now?
It is, but it isn't. And so when you look at school websites, for example, or school district websites, a lot of the times, and this is an assignment I actually have some of my students do, is to go find programs for children and families for different activities. And a lot of the times it's very shocking because websites for schools, etc., are lacking. Not up to date. And so it's that communication piece that if we really focus on that, we can get more information out. And wow, I didn't realize that there's a Jumpstart program. I didn't realize the YMCA down the street have these great cost-effective or very low-cost programs that I can put my children in.
Let me put this to you, this email from Krista, both of you. This is a great email. Another barrier to sports is the intensity of team sports after age 10. There's very limited access to playing sports for fun with people with average athletic ability or who are neurodiverse. This was true when my kids were young, and I'm still hearing it from parents today that kids want to play sports, but only a select few can play at the high school level. When my kids were younger, it was difficult to even join recreation programs if their skill level wasn't high enough. I would love it if we offered more accessibility to sports for all interest levels and abilities. Once a student hits middle school, it's very hard to be involved or learn a sport without being hardcore. But some kids just want to play and have fun and get exercise. So important. Yes. What do you make of that? That's a really interesting and important point.
Agree wholeheartedly. And I think certain sports do this better than others. One I would point to is soccer. Soccer has traditionally in this country, with the way that it has tiered its participants, always offered a house league opportunity. And despite what status people may put with rep teams, there is absolutely zero wrong with house league. But she brings up an incredible point, is that once our kids get into their teenage years, and she's saying as young as 10, we, for whatever reason, lose a lot of rec pathways. Mm-hmm. We get them back as adults. We get them back with community sports, what people have referred to as beer league hockey. We have so many adults who take up running a 5K. And
I hated running in high school.
But you did it. And guess what? When we offer those as adults, there isn't a pressure associated with them other than what you put on yourself. If you ran a 5K, every single person you know would congratulate you. They wouldn't ask you what place you finished.
Right.
But that intensity that she mentions is built into a number of sports, and it drives people away for the reasons that she pointed out. We need to offer more recreational pathways. We need to offer things like open gyms to our teenagers, because if you go to any schoolyard, and Stephen, I'm sure you can comment on this as well, they play every single recess, every single lunch, whether they're involved in organized soccer, basketball, volleyball, they play, and they find a way when we just let them play and give them access.
Yeah, Stephen, go ahead.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. In fact, just driving onto campus today, I drove by an elementary school. It happened to be lunch hour, and I looked out, and just about every single child was running around playing, whether on their own or in groups. And it's that play aspect. It also, what happens a lot of the time is in especially elementary school, even early childhood education, there's a lack of learning when it comes for physical skill development. We hear it all the time about math. We hear it all the time about literacy. And I'm not knocking those areas whatsoever because they are extremely important. But when we look at skill, it's very rare that I would go into an elementary school, a physical education class, and see fundamental skills like throwing, catching, striking, hopping, running, all this. I very rarely see those skills being taught. It tends to be more of a, let's just play a traditional game of dodgeball, etc. Mm-hmm. If we teach those fundamental skills, we get the confidence level as students get older to try a variety of different activities. And so, yes, I can't play a high level of volleyball anymore. We have rec programs out there, and Scott mentioned that. We just need to get those foundational skills, because then as everyone ages, they'll have the knowledge and the competence and the confidence, and that's a big thing, to try different things.
Let's take some more calls here. And Robert is joining us, who is a retired teacher and wants to talk about the role of teachers here. Hi, Robert, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Yes, I'm a retired teacher, and right now teachers are spinning more plates than a Cirque du Soleil performer. And to ask them to take on some more duties in these things is unrealistic. They are unbelievably busy just trying to keep their classrooms and their children, their students educated. If you want to do that some of the suggestions are pretty good. You want to do that? Start putting PE specialists in all the schools, so they can get those kind of skills. The kids can get those kind of skills. I'm a retired music specialist. Like kids to be good in music, you have to hire people who who really know, are trained and specialized in those particular areas.
Yeah,
But
great
really,
point.
the teachers are unbelievably overwhelmed right now, and they don't need to be burdened with extra things. If you want to offer those other programs, maybe hire people who are experts to come in after the school is over, and maybe the school can be used for those activities. But mind you, there's maintenance and cleanup and all that other stuff that could be worked out. But it's a facility that's available, but be asking teachers to do that, I think, is unrealistic.
Robert, good to hear from you. We actually have another email here from a teacher, a current teacher. Kelsey writes, I think people don't always realize that in the elementary and middle grades, school sports are almost entirely run by teacher volunteers. We are in the middle of provincial bargaining with the teachers union right now. One of the biggest asks from the union is more prep time, meaning classroom teachers get more breaks to grade and to plan, and more specialist teachers like PE are hired to cover that time. It's a win for everyone, really. Do you want? I have 2 minutes left, but Stephen, do you want to just respond to that idea?
I couldn't agree more. Back when I was growing up, we had physical education specialists in a lot of elementary schools. We tend to have more in the middle and high school level. But again, if we have that training in post-secondary and teacher education programs to have potential educators and future teachers come out and be well-versed in effective teaching strategies in physical education, we will, and that includes coaching techniques as well, that will really help with access and to sports and activities and limit those barriers for participation.
I have no time to go to Liz in Victoria. My apologies, but I know she wanted to talk about free bus passes, and kids should be given free bus passes to help alleviate the cash and mobility poverty in order to gain access. Liz, thank you very much for making your point. I really think we should have this conversation again.
I would love to. I want to add one quick thing if we have just a moment. I agree with Robert's point. Under the current conditions, it's unreasonable to ask teachers to do more. We need to change those conditions. One of the things teachers have a foundation of is understanding how to work with children. That's why they're a great resource. But under the current conditions, I agree completely, Robert. Stipends, tax incentives for teachers who coach, and the resources that Stephen talked about earlier. I think they should be all on the table. I would love to see more of that.
Wow, what a conversation. Again, love to do it once again. Thank you so much, Stephen and Scott. Really good to have you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Go Team Canada. Stephen Berg at UBC Okanagan and Scott Rintoul.